The time has come for the Shadow Drapion PvP IV deep dive for Great League PvP in Pokemon Go. You guys voted for it back when I did the Shadow Pokemon vote, because we actually have a Shadow TM event going on during the time of making this video. I put it up to a vote, and the winner of the vote was Shadow Drapion. Second place was Shadow Snorlax, and then nothing else came close to these two. Shadow Drapion was way ahead of Shadow Snorlax. Shadow Snorlax way ahead of everything else. And I really can't say that there is a third place because everything was kind of samey after that. Yeah, and I gotta say, this PvP IV deep dive compared to any other PvP IV deep dive I've ever done was probably the hardest and most time consuming to make. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The other big time-consuming one, like second place in terms of effort here, was my Diggersby PvP IV deep dive, link up above and in the description. It's one that you guys also asked for a lot, and none of you watched, so please check it out if you're interested. But I think the factor here, the common denominator, is that these two Pokemon are charge move spamming type Pokemon. And so getting an attack breakpoint is relatively uncommon. When it does happen, it can be big, but then you sacrifice all of that bulk along the way. So then there ends up being like a high attack version and then like a high bulk version. And it's difficult because, you know, if you survive enough, then you can get that extra charge move, and that can flip a matchup, and that can be huge. And I think things were just more complicated with Shadow Drapion because Shadow Drapion isn't a very tanky Pokemon to begin with, so it is more susceptible to changes in the opponent's attack stat. And then to add to that, it also has 3 different flavors of spammy charge move to throw out to try to change matchups and outcomes. So trying to balance all of that in a nice, neat, comprehensive way, it was a lot. But here we are. We made it. We have the fruits of my research. So let's dig in to Shadow Drapion. Actually, before we begin, I gotta give you guys the same disclaimer I gave y'all in my Shadow Nidoqueen PvP IV deep dives, link up above of course, and in the description if you want to check those out. But yeah, this is a Shadow Pokemon, so the chances for you to get the high-end or very specific IVs on a Shadow Pokemon are abysmally low. It probably never will happen, so take a lot of these stat ranges that I give you in this video and treat it as like a catalog of things that your Shadow Drapion may be able to do if you meet these stat checkoffs. And to that end, it's important for you to check the true stats of your own Pokemon rather than relying on canned IV spreads. And I will tell you that there are canned IVs in this video because there are so few really good Shadow Drapions. But you really should be checking your own stats using like pvpoke.com or some sort of PvP IV checker, of course, linked in the description to all those resources there. That way you can find out what's the best Shadow Drapion for you to build out of the candidates that you actually have, because chances are you're not going to have the high bulk Shadow Drapions that I'm going to be highlighting in this video, but you could have something very close to it. And then where there's darkness, there's also light, I guess. Even though chances are you won't have the high bulk Shadow Drapion that I'm going to be promoting in this video, there is also a very high attack weight Shadow Drapion, much like with the Diggersby PvP IV deep dive, that has some really interesting wins. And I feel like if you don't end up having a satisfactory bulk Drapion, I feel like going for this high attack stat, this different flavor of Shadow Drapion, could arguably be better. So more on that later on in the video. So to start out, let's talk about that complicated defense stat. And actually the defense stat is so complicated for Shadow Drapion here that there's going to be 3 sections. There's going to be the recommended defense, the low end of defense, and the high end of defense, because Drapion's just got it like that, you know? So starting out with the recommended defense, the recommended range I'm looking at is about 136.86 defense. With this defense breakpoint, you can get a breakpoint on Abomasnow, Clefable, Shadow Victory Bell, Powdered Snow Alolan Ninetales, and some Charm Alolan Ninetales, Shadow Machamp, and against Sirfetch'd. The reason why I've chosen this stat as the recommended defense range for a Shadow Drapion is because a lot of the defense breakpoints that happen beneath this aren't exactly like nearly as meta relevant as this defense stat can be. Like the Abomasnow 2/2 shield scenario, being able to overcome Clefable, or Shadow Victory Bell, or Powdered Snow Alola Ninetales. You know, these are all some pretty big deals that if your Shadow Drapion can pull that off consistently, then yeah, that's big. That's pretty big. You will also notice though that a lot of these defense stats are also tied to a HP stat or maybe even an attack breakpoint. So it can be a bit more complicated than just reaching the defense, which is what makes doing a Shadow Drapion PvP IV deep dive such a molding experience, because there's just so much going on. So for the Clefable, not only do you need that defense stat, but you also need roughly a 119 HP stat. You know, for the Powdered Snow Alola Ninetales, to do the 2/2 shield scenario straight Aqua Tail, you need a 115 HP stat. And then when it comes to Surfetched, you're going to also have to have the attack breakpoint at 117.25, which is a relatively slight attack weight, so not too unreasonable to do. And then also in the footnote there, you can see that you might not even need to have this defense stat for the Surfetched situation. You may just need 120 HP. So as I said before, boiling down the Shadow Drapion IVs is kind of a complicated process, especially for a Pokemon that we can't reliably get good splits on. So, you know, shoot for the moon, land among the stars. Here are some of the brighter stars highlighted for you. Moving down to the lower end of the defense stats, first we have the 133.99 defense against Bastiodon, which enables the 2/1 shield scenario straight Aqua Tail. So you spend 2 shields, they only spend 1 shield, and you can overcome it with Aqua Tail damage. And you do also have more potential to take it on with Crunch, should you not have Aqua Tail, if you get a defense debuff inside, or, you know, in a more uneven situation. Honestly, like if you're Drapion against Bastiodon, even with Aqua Tail, it is a pretty dire situation, but it's not an indomitable situation, and having that 133.99 defense stat can help out quite a bit. And then we also have the 133 to 135.06 defense range for a Fire Spin Alola Marowak 1/1 shield scenario. You know, they can hit you with the Bone Club, and the Bone Club hurts quite a bit. And the Fire Spin, that's neutral, and your poison type attacks are resisted. So having that ability to more reliably take on Fire Spin Alola Marowak, that can be pretty big. And I would say that if you are thrifting on the defense, you know, trying to aim for at least like 135, 135.06 specifically, I guess, could be a solid low range to gun for when it comes to Shadow Drapion, and still have your Shadow Drapion have an acceptable amount of bulk, right? And then for lower ranges, we do got like 131.29, which can help against Cofagrigus, 130.07, which can help out against Galvantula. And if Galvantula has a high enough attack stat to overcome that defense breakpoint, then they end up losing so much bulk that you can just beat them anyways. So it's probably not worth thinking about that low. There's also a low-end one against Medicham as well, but I'd say a lot of these defense breakpoints are so low, chances are you are going to be getting them anyways. So hope you got them. And then finally, if you end up having a very, very high defense Shadow Drapion, first off, hats off to you. Not many people are going to have it, but I guess you do. Well, here are some high-end defense breakpoints that you can look forward to. First up, we have Snarl Mandibuzz with the 137.13 defense stat. Now you can beat it in the 2/2 shield scenario, and then circumstances depending, you can maybe beat it in the 0/0 shield scenario as well. Now, important thing to note about the 2/2 shield scenario is that you could also flip that with a lower defense stat if you have a 117 HP stat or higher, circumstances depending on your defense versus the Mandibuzz's attack stat. Next up, we have the 137.12 to 139 defense range, which can help you overcome Sylveon in the 1/1 shield scenario. So you're not just overcoming some Charmers, you're overcoming basically all them Charmers, which can be pretty nice. And then finally, we have the 138.11 to 140.05 defense stat, which can help out against Swampert. And you're not going to flip any matchups against Swampert, but it could prevent a Swampert from farming you down. You could reach a charge move before they farm you down, or they'd have to throw some energy to take you out, realizing that their mud shots won't farm you down. So that could help you out in some sort of dire high-end situation against a Swampert. Once again, I'd say these high-end defense breakpoints aren't exactly goals. I'd be a lot more satisfied with the 136.86 to like, I don't know, 136-ish range. I'd be more comfortable there. But if you got this high end and you got good HP along with it, then you probably have like the rank 1 Shadow Drapion, and I guess hats off to you for getting that. Oh yeah, also forgot to mention it earlier, but 133.43 to about 137.62, that defense range can also encompass Wigglytuff in the 1-1 shield scenario, straight Sludge Bomb or straight Aqua Tail. So that's technically in the recommended range and dips into the high end a little bit, but something else to chew on too. Like Charmers, they might have a good time against Shadow Drapion, but if you got that big defense stat, well, now they might be having an ugly time against your Shadow Drapion. Now moving on to the HP, I kind of cover the HP already in the defense stat because a lot of the defense recommendations are tied to an HP stat, but I do want to give a special shout out to the 120 HP stat, which can help out a little bit more in the mirror. It can also override the need for the defense breakpoint for the Aqua Tail matchup for Sirfetch'd. So 120, pretty big deal. And it can also help out in the 2-2 shield situation against the Sableye that's going straight foul play against you. So you just double shield them. They're going for the foul plays. You want to take them out. But yeah, having big HP can make that a little bit more consistent. So I guess when it comes to the weights of your Drapion, if you don't have like, I don't know, 118 HP and the recommended defense, going for this 120 HP can be a way to make up for having a lower defense stat. So how difficult is it to get the recommended defense stat and the recommended 118 HP stat? Well, there's only 60 splits in existence that do that. And here they are in tables of 20 for you. And then when it comes to the green highlights, that just highlights some like higher breakpoints or higher stat checks that can have some, you know, significant matchups associated with them as well to look into. So yeah, here they are, all 60 out of like 4,096 or something like that. So yeah, if you do have any one of these 60 splits, hats off to you. Make sure to comment below and brag about it. Have us all turn green in envy because you got the big bulk Shadow Drapion. Now, I imagine most of us don't have this big bulk Shadow Drapion, and when it comes to not having this high-end defense or having a more comfortable defense, maybe if you are going for like the lower end, let's say you just got bad splits. You've got like less than 115 HP, you've got less than 135 defense, and you really don't have a whole lot to do to reconcile. Well, I've got a treat for you guys, and that is the high attack Shadow Drapion. That's right, I haven't done an attack breakpoint section yet because the defense and the HP matters so much that there's no use in talking about it, unless of course you are going for the attack meme, Shadow Drapion. So when it comes to having a high-end attack stat on Shadow Drapion, for some of the lesser attack breakpoints, you already know about the Sirfetch'd one at 117.25. You of course need a 136.6 or higher defense stat, or a 120 HP stat to truly pull off the straight Aqua Tail matchup against Sirfetch'd. And then Sirfetch'd also needs to not get the boost off of a Night Slash. So kind of a dicey situation. If you want to go higher in attack, there's also an interesting Charizard breakpoint at 118.48, which will allow you to 1-1 a Charizard with Fire Spin without having Aqua Tail. And if you do have Aqua Tail, then you can overcome Charizard even at a shield disadvantage because of the extra Poison Sting damage. So pretty useful there. And then of course this higher 118 level of attack breakpoint also encompasses Shadow Machamp and Greedent as well. And it doesn't exactly flip those matchups, but when it comes to not getting farmed or maybe setting them up to get farmed or something like that, or farming them down, just uneven situations, it could be useful to have them breakpoints, right? But there is an even higher attack breakpoint that trumps all of these. And if you're going to be going like at 118 plus attack, you're going to be missing out on basically all the defense and HP checks anyways, so you may as well fully embrace the attack stat and go for the 121.59 or higher attack stat. And with this attack stat, you get a breakpoint against the XL Azumarill. Rank 1, huge bulk, mega stat product, Azumarill. Now, of course, there are some defense-weighted Azumarills, some splits that have slightly higher defense than the rank 1, so titrating that attack up a bit higher could be useful, but I wouldn't recommend going much higher than 123.52 attack, because after that, I don't really know what you're expecting to get out of that attack weight other than, I guess, CMP. At any rate, 121.59. And with this Azumarill Breakpoint, with Sludge Bomb, you have more opportunities to overcome it in the shield disadvantage situations. So the 0-1 and the 1-2 shield, you got more potential for the 2-2 shield in general. This, of course, is all with the Sludge Bomb. And let's say your Shadow Drapion isn't running Sludge Bomb. It's Crunch Aqua Tail. What does this breakpoint matter now, Mr. Swag? Well, without Sludge Bomb, with the breakpoint, you can now overcome Azumarill in the 1-0 and 2-1 shield scenarios. Yes, you have to spend extra shields to take down Azumarill, but you're the guy running around without Sludge Bomb, so you weren't really expecting to take out Azumarill with this Drapion to begin with. And with having this breakpoint, you now have more outs than you did before to Azumarill should you get caught in that sticky situation without the Sludge Bomb. To add to that, if you do throw Crunch and you do get the Crunch debuff, that also gives you 1 extra point of damage per Poison Sting on the Azumarill. So when you think about the even situations, it's already very helpful. And then when you think about the more random uneven situations where you could potentially farm down an Azumarill with just straight Poison Sting damage, this could be very, very useful. And I'd say that this attack meme level of Shadow Drapion is so useful in that Azumarill matchup, and it can also help out against, Charizard and Sirfetch'd as well, and other uneven situations, of course, that if you don't have, the high end of bulk Drapion, if you're looking at the defense and HP stats of your Shadow Drapion candidates, and none of them are really up to par, then I think you'd probably be safer or better off siding with the attack meme Shadow Drapion. And if you want to go for a bulkier Drapion, then just go with normal Drapion with good IVs instead of going for your half-assed shitty IV Shadow Drapion. Now, obviously, you'll still want to have like a bulkier Shadow Drapion waiting in the wings in case like a meta shift happens and it's not the best, but it's good enough, and having the Shadow's better than having the normal for some specific meta situation. I'm not saying to just completely throw away, your highest stat product Shadow Drapion if it doesn't meet the defense and HP checks. But the one that you're going to use in Great League, I think I'd go with the Azumarill Slayer here. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that was a lot to talk about, so it might be a lot for you guys to take in. So just to recap here, if you don't have the high-end bulk Drapion that I talked about earlier on in the video, then going for this attack weight Shadow Drapion could be a more useful thing to do. When it comes to Shadow Drapion versus normal Drapion, like bad IV Shadow Drapion versus good IV normal Drapion, my current impression is that going for the normal, if you do want to do the high bulk stuff, will be a lot more reliable if you don't have like the top 60 upper echelon of bulky Shadow Drapion. That said, there are still reasons to go for a bulkier Shadow Drapion should you not have the super high end of bulk, so don't just toss them to the side. There could be a meta where having that extra bulk could be useful even though you don't have as much bulk as you might like to have. That all said, when it comes to the Open Great League, if you don't have the super bulky Shadow Drapion, the attack meme, the Azumarill Slayer, does seem pretty interesting, and Azumarill's not going away anytime soon. It's been like, 4 years of PvP, and this thing has been on top the entire time. So you could say like, oh, this attack breakpoint's so hyper specific to this one Pokemon. Yeah, it's the one Pokemon that everybody's using. So, and then you got the other attack breakpoints along with it, and you got CMP. And then also, it's in the same attack range as Golbat, so you get CMP on Golbat too. So there are plenty of reasons to go for the attack meme. And then when you consider that, if you don't have the big defense and HP thresholds highlighted before, you're basically as good as any other Drapion. Well, the attack-weighted Drapions got that extra thing going on compared to the other not exactly tanky Shadow Drapions. So, shoot for the moon, land among the stars. Shadow Pokemon are very hard to get good IVs for. At any rate, that's all I got to say about Shadow Drapion and Great League PvP. If you got any questions on this content, comment below, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. I'm going to be honest with you guys, doing this Shadow Drapion deep dive for Great League was such a chore that I don't think I'll be doing it for Ultra League PvP before this event is over. But to make up for that, I think I'm going to double down on the Ultra League Snorlax, Shadow Snorlax for Ultra League PvP. Hopefully I can get that out tomorrow. We'll find out tomorrow.